is a special edition of Cornelius Fichtner's Project Management Podcast. I am Andreas Heilwagen, the host of the PM Podcast from Germany and author of the blog Project Management Beratung. The PM Podcast provides interviews and project management knowledge ranging from standardization to practice. All episodes are available on the internet at pm-podcast.de. Every episode has two parts. Part 1 acts as a short introduction. Part 2 goes into detail with hands-on examples and tips. Welcome to the third episode of the PM Podcast and our first episode in English. Today we will talk about an incredible project. DHL built a central air hub Europe within only 2.5 years. They did it on time, under budget and with increased quality. And I have an expert on the phone. Mr. Ingolf Speer is one of the project managers of this project. Hello Ingolf, how are you?
Hello Andreas, nice to hear you.
Can you give us a short description of the project, your role in the project and your professional experience?
Yes, of course, I can do that. As you said, my name is Ingolf Speer. I was one of the responsible project manager in the project DHL Central Air Hub Leipzig. From my background, I worked in different big projects for Lufthansa, for Star Alliance and for other big companies before I joined the DHL project in November 2005. I hold a certificate as an PMP and project management professional, as well as a certificate as a Prince 2 practitioner.
I visited the site a few months ago and it was just great. I never saw such a complex system working so good. And let's talk about the structure of the podcast. The first part is about the project, it gives you a short impression, and the second part goes into detail. So our objective today is to talk about the success factors. For example, risks, people, and how the project was structured. Ingolf, can you give us a short description of the project?
Yes. The size of the project was incredible. As you explained, we built within 2.5 years a new warehouse, which is 400 by 100 meters wide. We built a new aircraft hangar. We built a new apron with more than 500,000 square meters space. And we employed more than 2,000 people from scratch. So we came from zero to running up a big business with up to 60 aircraft tonight within 2.5 years.
So the goal of this business is to move lots of freight and letters within a very short time. And what is the place of this project in the global structure of DHL?
The DHL Central Air Hub in Leipzig became one of the big hubs of DHL Express in the world. So Leipzig is next in Hong Kong in Asia Pacific, the biggest air hub from DHL. And via Leipzig, all the freight in Europe is moved.
Wow. So, as a German citizen, I can be proud to have such an important project and airport here in Germany.
Yes, you can be proud, as well as 2,000 other employees, which became new work in that area.
That is a very important background because Leipzig was a very small airport and the rate of unemployment was really high. How many people do you plan to employ in the future and do you have facts on the rate of unemployment before and after the project?
Yes, well, our plans are that we will have up to 3,500 employees until 2012. 2 years ago we started with 50 people, which has been only the project management team. And we had 2 years ago in the area of Leipzig an unemployment rate between 18 and 19%. Now we have around about 14 to 15%, which is less than 2 years ago. But it's not only dependent on DHL, it's also dependent on other companies in the area of Leipzig, most of them logistic companies, which are now based in the center of Germany.
So after the first introduction to the project, we'll continue with an analysis of the project in part 2 of the podcast. This is the end of part 1 of the PM podcast. I hope you liked it. Please send your feedback and ideas for future episodes to info@pm-podcast.de. And now comes part 2 with details, examples and tips. Welcome to the second part of the interview with Ingolf Speer about the Central Air Hub Europe of DHL. DHL planned to merge their international freight operations with a domestic air cargo carrier. They were located in Cincinnati and the destination was Wilmington. Ingolf, can you tell us more about this DHL project and what you learned of this project?
Yeah, when we are talking about Wilmington, well, we moved over to Wilmington and we spoke with a lot of people and project manager from Wilmington to find out what lessons learned can we use from the Wilmington. And they were really friendly and open and they helped us very much. And also guys from Wilmington moved over to Leipzig to help us in Leipzig. What we found out, for instance, and what we changed in our project management philosophy was that in Wilmington, they moved all the business during one day from Cincinnati to Wilmington. So they had one operations during night in Cincinnati, and they want to have the next night operations in Wilmington. And that failed. So for us, we took the idea to start our business step by step, not to do a big bang, as we call it. We chose the solution to, do smaller bangs. So first we moved some flights into our new warehouse. When I'm talking about some flights, I'm talking about 17 flights a night. Then when the operation was stabilized, we moved the business from Cologne to Leipzig. So we increased the flights from 17 to 34. And after stabilization of that business, we moved in a third step the business from Brussels to Leipzig and increased the flights from 34 to 60. I believe that solution was the major factor of success for our project because we had always the chance to move back business if some things with the go live operation will fail. What we also learned from English, when we have a go live for such a huge operations, we need to reduce the complexity. And what, for instance, Wilmington did, during this go live, they changed from sorting with the domestic zip code from the US. They changed it to the 3-letter international code of airports, which was quite difficult for the people to understand and to change during that operations. So we avoided such a situation. And what we also did, we chose the solution that we have a fully automated sorting system where not people are sorting the packages, but the system do. And usually an IT system, what is working fine, never does the failures that a human being is doing.
However, doing everything automatically also increases complexity. So let's look at another project which was in the press in 2008, London Heathrow Terminal 5. I collected some facts. They claimed to use the best lean project management practice. But in the end, hundreds of flights were cancelled, 28,000 pieces of luggage were lost. And why? One explanation is that the need for training had been underestimated. The call center agents were trained for 20 minutes about 60 months before transition, and they couldn't handle the software. So another thing was they came to the airport and they had to search for the parking lots because that was never part of the test. And software issues prevented check-in and finally led to baggage piling up on the conveyors. In the end, the system shut down because it was full. They claim that they tested it for 18 months and it was the largest system of its kind in Europe with 10.5 miles of conveyor belts. So there were warnings, of course, but they were weak. And there were software simulations which showed exactly what would happen. However, the system load was higher in the end and the warnings were ignored by the management. So some questions in the media were, was there too much pride? Was there a fear to be embarrassed? The Queen was on site, so it's hard to move the date of go live. And question is, was there a denial of real risks? If you hear this list of issues, what do you think? What did DHL improve in the Leipzig project?
Well, first of all, on the same weekend where Heathrow went live, also DHL Hub went live with a Brussels move, so we increased by 34 flights, but you didn't read in the newspaper. So in comparison to what you said about Heathrow, we choose some other solutions. For instance, for the training and for the test and trial, we had upfront to the go live date a 3-month test and trial period where we tested all processes, all people, all IT systems, and we also tested the public transport. We tested the interfaces to customs, to German officials and to other people. We even tested if the canteen works, because it is really important that you test all the people and all the systems upfront to go live. We did it during night, so 3 months long. Each night, all the employees came in. They sorted each night up to 60,000 test parcels. They did nothing else than to sort test parts from the left-hand side to the right-hand side of the warehouse, move it to aircraft, move it back from the aircraft. And they did it to show us where are the processes okay, where do we have mistakes in the processes, where do we need to adjust processes, even with the public transport, even with the parking lot, even with IT redundancy, even with power supply, and so on and so on. We did a full load test, and I really believe that that was the major factor of success for the DHL project, that we also protected the 3-month test and trial period from other wishes a lot of stakeholders of the project. Of course, there has been people and they asked to move Cologne Brussels earlier to Leipzig, or there has been people, they said they need to finish their project results later than up to the start of test and trial. But with a strict project management and with a really strict project manager, we could avoid the situation and really protected this 3-month test and trial period. And to be honest, we needed 3 months, each month of it.
When I visited the site, you told me that you had a stage testing. So you didn't start with the full complexity, and I don't think you had the maximum number of pieces in the test run.
Yes, that's true. We increased the complexity of tests. During the first month, we did not test processes, we did test steps of the processes. So, for instance, a small process step like offload or unload in container. And we did it for 1 month, and even that was not easy. After that, we increased the complexity by putting steps of processes together, so to combine, for instance, the offload with the reload process. And during the 3rd month, we increased the complexity and we tested also emergency processes, or we tested what happens if we have a power cut, or what happens if we have a IT system failure, and so on. So we increased step by step the complexity, and we also did during the 3rd month a full volume test that we tested the fully automated sorting system not only to the planned capacity, we also tested it with an overcapacity to see what happens if the engine needs to sort more than expected.
So you had a chance to fix everything which could go wrong.
Well, at least we tried to test everything what can go wrong, and from day 1 on, the engine works without any major failure.
So I think a very important factor for such a project success is project culture. Can you tell us more about the project culture, how the project managers interacted with the management, did the final decisions and so on?
Well, DHL Express, as a former US-based company, was bought by Deutsche Post WorldNet a couple of years ago. So we actually worked in that project with 2 different cultures. One is the, let's say, German culture of Deutsche Post WorldNet, and the other culture is the DHL US international culture. And we took the best out of both of those cultures. The Germans, well known as the people which plan everything into detail and realize everything into detail. Let's say, US culture, the can-do culture of DHL, which also brings solutions for problems, sometimes fast if it's planned. And we had a really good project manager, and he has the authority given from the Deutsche Post WorldNet to decide everything in the project. So he has nobody above him. He could decide everything about money. He could decide everything about time. He could decide everything about technical changes or quality or quantity changes. And I believe that also one of the success factors is that you have a really strong project manager and that he has the right to do his decisions in the way he needs. So avoid long decision ways.
I had some projects which just got stopped because the management couldn't decide. So you had a very strong project manager. As you told me, DHL uses a Prince2 based project management method. How does it match? Because I feel Prince2 tells us the project manager is responsible for the phase, but not for the major project decisions.
That's true, and at the same time a little bit wrong. Well, we worked according to Prince2. Prince2, as a project management standard, says that you have a strong project board, and you have suppliers and customers in the project board, and also the business responsible one. And in our case, the project manager worked closely together with the project board. All the decisions made from the project manager has been discussed in the project board, but it has been always decided in the way the project manager wanted to have it, because the preparation of these decisions have been that good and that logical that the project board always said, or almost always said, that yes, the project manager shall go on with his decision. So it was a good work together between the project board and the project manager.
And how did you integrate the project management team? You told us about the different cultures, you told us about the successful relationship between the project board and the project manager. How did that work?
Well, it worked also the way like Prince2 says. So we had different teams working on different project parts. We had one team which was responsible for the whole sorting engine. We had one project team responsible for all the buildings. We had one project team responsible for the IT, and we also had one project team where I worked in, which was responsible for the transition process, so the move of the flights from other airports to Leipzig. And each of those teams had a team leader, and all the team leaders worked together with the project manager. So it was a kind of a hierarchical pyramid where every project member knew what he has to do.
So this was a description of the project organization. So how did it work on the soft skills side? How did you integrate the people?
I think that is one of the difficultest tasks you can have in a big project. It's not about technique, it's about people. Well, we had a really open-minded project team, and it was also in my project management experience the first time that I worked in a project team which was that open and that honest to each other, also in terms of risk if some things did not went the way we want to have it. Each week, one meeting where all open big issues have been discussed, and the project manager was the one who did decide either the team 1 or the team 2 will go with the best decision. Also, if we have, for instance, with this go live scenario, with this 3 steps of go live, it was a long discussion because it's not the cheapest way to bring an air hub to life, because the cheapest way is obviously the big bang, so move all the flights during one night. But we did not choose the cheapest way, we chose the safest way to move it in 3 steps. And this was, for instance, one decision which we prepared during 3 different workshops, where we had all the relevant people from different project teams in, so where we discussed the advantages and the disadvantages of different go-live scenarios and we came out with the solution we finally did.
So you described to us what were the soft skill success factors of this project, and you talked about Prince2. The interesting thing is, this project was recognized by the German Project Management Excellent Award 2008. And this Project Management Award is awarded by the GPM, which is an organization within the IPMA, the International Project Management Association. So we have two standards which add up quite nicely. Prince2 is only a framework without methods and without the soft skill factor, and the international competency baseline of the IPMA is a competency standard. Let me summarize the success factors. The most important factor was a 3-month test period. They did it during night, so it was quite realistic, and they did it in stages. The second success factor was the small bangs approach. So they didn't move everything in one night, so they did it step by step, and they had good fallback scenarios. And the third thing was a reduced complexity, where in Wilmington the sorting system was changed at the same time as the airport went live. In Leipzig, they tried to don't combine several things in one project, but instead they automized the whole sorting process. So here's my last question, Ingolf. What is your current job as DHL after this great project?
I moved over to DHL in November 2007, and now I'm working as a manager of services in the DHL Hub Leipzig GmbH, and I'm actually looking forward to see the airport in Leipzig and DHL side of airport increasing its business during the next years.
So you told me that there will be 3,500 people in the future. Where will they work?
Keep in mind that the Leipzig airport has unrestricted night flight rights for the next 30 years, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So I believe, and not only I, a lot of other people believe that in the next few years, the business of DHL, as well as business of other logistic carriers, will increase at Airport Leipzig, because that is not only airport, we also have a great highway connection with 2 new built highways, and we also have a cargo train running from Leipzig into the world. So this 3-model hub is unique in Germany, and it's almost unique in Europe.
Thank you very much for this interview, Ingolf. And this is the end of our 3rd episode of the PM podcast. This is the end of today's PM podcast. You can find all episodes on the internet at pm-podcast.de, or you can subscribe on iTunes to get all episodes automatically downloaded to your computer or MP3 player. And what can you do until the next episode? Read my German blog at blog.pjmb.de, the leading project management blog from Germany and home of the PM podcast. Thank you very much and all the best until the next episode.